close your eyes. Right now, all that stretches before you is an endless world of white. No forests, no cities, no signs of life, only the sound of the wind and ice that seems to go on forever. But what if I told you that this silence is only an illusion? Because beneath your feet, some of Earth's greatest mysteries may still be waiting. Ancient mountains buried beneath the ice, forests that disappeared millions of years ago, fossils of creatures that once walked across a very different Antarctica, hidden ecosystems surviving without sunlight, and countless questions that still have no answers. Some believe these are simply natural wonders waiting to be understood. Others believe the ice is hiding secrets humanity has not yet uncovered. So, what is really beneath Antarctica? Hello, and welcome. If you enjoy falling asleep while exploring the greatest mysteries of history and science, you're in exactly the right place. I'm truly happy you're here tonight. Before we begin, I'd love to know which of my night companions are joining me this evening, wherever you are in the world, and whatever time it is where you live. Don't forget to leave your city and your local time in the comments below. One of my favorite parts of every morning is reading your messages. Seeing night companions checking in from every corner of the world always reminds me of one simple thing. Even on the quietest nights, none of us are ever truly alone. And now, let's dim the lights just a little more. If these peaceful journeys through history help you relax, quiet your mind, or drift off to sleep, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. That small gesture helps our Night Companions community continue to grow. Now, make yourself comfortable, take one slow, deep breath, and together, let's travel to the coldest place on Earth, a place where the ice is more than 4 kilometers thick, where temperatures can fall below -80 degrees, and where almost everything we know exists only on the surface, because beneath that endless white silence, another Antarctica may still be waiting to be discovered. This is the true story of the mystery of Antarctica. Antarctica is the coldest, the most isolated, and perhaps the least understood continent on Earth. From above, it appears to be nothing more than an endless blanket of white, silent, empty, almost untouched. But beneath that frozen surface, another story may still be waiting. Hidden beneath kilometers of ice are ancient mountains, fossils from worlds long forgotten, and landscapes that existed millions of years before humans ever appeared. For centuries, Antarctica was little more than a blank space on old maps, a distant land beyond the edge of the known world, a place so remote that few believed anyone would ever truly explore it. Today we know it is enormous, nearly twice the size of Australia, larger than all of Europe. It holds almost 90% of the world's ice. Yet despite everything we have learned, Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on Earth. As technology improved, our understanding slowly began to change. Satellites revealed details that no explorer had ever seen. Old maps claimed to show Antarctica before it was covered by ice. Strange shapes appeared in satellite images. Stories that had once been dismissed as legends began to attract new attention. Rumors of hidden research stations, unexplained discoveries, and mysterious observations only made the continent seem even more fascinating. Tonight, we will explore what has truly been discovered in Antarctica. We will separate scientific evidence from legend, and legend from speculation. Together, we will examine why this frozen continent continues to inspire so many questions. By the end of our journey, you can decide for yourself what may truly be hidden beneath the ice. One discovery in particular captured the world's attention. In 2016, satellite images taken over the Ellsworth Mountains spread rapidly across the internet. Among the snowy peaks, one mountain looked different. Unlike the surrounding mountains, it appeared to have 4 remarkably smooth faces meeting at a sharp summit. From above, it looked surprisingly similar to the Great Pyramid of Giza. The mountain stands in a remote part of the southern Ellsworth Mountains, far from almost everyone. Rising to about 1,260 meters, its pyramid-like shape is easy to recognize from the air. Geologists offer a much simpler explanation. They describe it as a nunatak, a rocky mountain peak rising above the surrounding ice sheet. Over millions of years, powerful winds, freezing temperatures, and countless cycles of freezing and thawing gradually shaped the rock into what we see today. Nature, given enough time, is capable of creating forms that appear almost perfectly symmetrical. The famous Matterhorn in the Swiss Alps is another example of this process. Even so, many people remain unconvinced. Most pyramid-shaped mountains have only one or two clearly defined faces. This peak appears to have four. From certain angles, its symmetry seems almost too perfect to be natural. Because of this, some independent researchers have suggested a different possibility. They believe the mountain may not be entirely natural. According to this idea, it could be an ancient pyramid built long before Antarctica disappeared beneath the ice. These theories become even more intriguing when compared with the pyramids of Egypt, Mexico, and Peru. Some researchers believe similar shapes may reflect a shared architectural tradition. Others argue that different civilizations simply reached the same design independently because the pyramid is both stable and practical. Similar debates have surrounded the Bosnian pyramids for many years. While mainstream archaeologists reject the idea that they are man-made structures, supporters argue that their regular slopes and geometric appearance deserve further investigation. Today, similar discussions continue around several formations in the Ellsworth Mountains. Satellite images appear to show nearby ridges and snow-covered peaks with remarkably symmetrical outlines. Some even seem to have square-shaped bases when viewed from above. For scientists, however, the greatest challenge is not the shape itself. It is the difficulty of reaching these locations. Most of Antarctica is buried beneath ice that is several kilometers thick. Only a tiny part of the continent's rocky surface can be seen. Extreme weather, dangerous conditions, and strict environmental protections make large excavations almost impossible. For now, whatever story these mountains may hold remains hidden beneath the ice. As satellite technology continued to improve, researchers began noticing other unusual formations across Antarctica. Dark openings appeared on steep mountain slopes. Some resembled enormous doorways. Others looked almost like giant staircases leading into the mountains themselves. These images continue to attract attention from both scientists and researchers interested in alternative theories. One of the most discussed formations lies deep within East Antarctica. There, a large rectangular opening can be seen in a steep rock face surrounded by snow and ice. Its straight edges, balanced shape, and dark interior make it stand out from the surrounding landscape. Some estimates suggest the opening could even be large enough for an aircraft to pass through. However, these estimates are based only on satellite imagery and have never been confirmed. Glaciologists remain cautious. They explain that moving ice, fractured rock, powerful winds, and repeated freezing and melting can naturally create cavities like these. Other researchers believe the feature is simply an exposed ridge that became visible as the surrounding ice slowly changed over time. Another remarkable formation appears on an island near the Antarctic coast. There, a wide cave entrance can be seen beneath a snow-covered mountain. Its interior disappears into complete darkness, making it impossible to know what lies inside. In front of the entrance, dark parallel lines stretch across the mountainside. From above, they almost resemble enormous steps leading into the mountain. Scientists have not reached a single conclusion about these formations. Some believe they formed through ancient collapses or uneven erosion. Others suggest that natural geological processes are capable of producing patterns that appear surprisingly regular. Adding to the mystery, these formations seem to change over time. In some years, the openings and stair-like shapes are clearly visible. In other years, fresh snowfall hides them almost completely. Later, after strong winds or seasonal changes, they appear once again, sometimes revealing details that seem different from before. Yet perhaps the greatest surprise of all is that Antarctica was not always frozen. Long before endless glaciers covered the continent, this was a green world filled with forests, rivers, and abundant life. Over the past century, geologists and paleobotanists have uncovered remarkable evidence beneath the ice. Fossils of ancient forests, leaves preserved for millions of years, and the remains of ecosystems that once flourished where today only snow and silence remain. One of the earliest discoveries came during Robert Falcon Scott's expedition in 1912. Near the Beardmore Glacier, around 500 kilometers from the South Pole, his team discovered fossilized leaves that resembled those of modern beech trees. At first, many believed the discovery had to be a mistake. Later expeditions proved otherwise. The fossils were real. They belonged to a very different Antarctica. Farther south, on Alexander Island and across the Antarctic Peninsula, researchers made another remarkable discovery. There, they uncovered fossilized trees with their roots still preserved in the ground. Some of these ancient trees stood nearly 7 meters tall. Around them were fossil pollen, leaves, and other plant remains belonging to temperate rainforests that flourished almost 100 million years ago. These forests were far more than collections of trees. They were part of a vast landscape shaped by winding rivers, wetlands, and broad coastal plains. At that time, Earth's climate was much warmer than it is today. Even though Antarctica already lay close to the South Pole, scientists estimate that temperatures may have ranged between 13 and 21 degrees Celsius. The endless freezing winters we associate with Antarctica today had not yet arrived. Evergreen trees, conifers, and giant ferns were able to thrive, even through months of polar darkness. More recent drilling projects beneath the Antarctic ice have strengthened the picture suggested by these fossils. Researchers from Rice University discovered ancient pollen preserved deep within sediment layers beneath the waters surrounding the Antarctic Peninsula. Their findings suggest that as recently as 12 million years ago, parts of the region were still covered by tundra-like vegetation. Only over millions of years did the continent slowly become locked beneath expanding ice sheets. Together, these discoveries tell an extraordinary story. Antarctica did not become a frozen continent overnight. Its transformation unfolded gradually across millions of years, and some regions remained free of permanent ice far longer than scientists once believed. That naturally leads to an intriguing question. If a mild climate existed here for millions of years, could there have been enough time for unknown civilizations, or perhaps intelligent species that existed long before humans, to develop on this continent? According to modern science, the answer is almost certainly no. The oldest known Homo sapiens appeared around 300,000 years ago, while Antarctica's permanent ice sheets are believed to have existed for at least 14 million years. Based on everything we currently know, humans could not have lived here. Even so, unusual claims and controversial discoveries continue to keep the mystery alive. One of the most famous pieces of evidence often mentioned in these discussions is the Piri Reis Map. Drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, the map shows the coast of South America in remarkable detail, along with a mysterious landmass far to the south. What makes the map so fascinating is the claim that this southern coastline may represent Antarctica. Some researchers believe it resembles the continent not as it appears today beneath kilometers of ice, but as it might have looked before the ice sheets formed. Supporters of this idea argue that such an accurate coastline would have been impossible to produce using the technology of the early 16th century. They suggest that Piri Reis may have copied much older maps inherited from an unknown civilization. This idea became widely known through the work of historian Charles Hapgood. Hapgood proposed that an advanced seafaring civilization existed long before recorded history and mapped much of the world. According to his theory, Antarctica itself may have been charted before it became completely covered by ice. Although these ideas are not accepted by mainstream historians or geologists, they continue to capture the imagination of many people. Hapgood even suggested that the coastline shown on the Piri Reis Map reflected Antarctica, as it may have appeared sometime between 10,000 and 4,000 BC. Most historians agree that the map is an impressive achievement, especially in its depiction of South America. What remains uncertain is whether the large southern landmass truly represents Antarctica, or whether it was simply the legendary continent known as Terra Australis, a land that many early cartographers believed must exist somewhere in the far south. Centuries later, Antarctica was finally discovered. Yet even today, no one knows exactly how early mapmakers imagined this distant continent or what sources may have inspired their work. The mysteries do not end there. Modern radar systems and satellite technology have revealed enormous landscapes hidden beneath Antarctica's ice. In East Antarctica, scientists mapped a buried region nearly the size of Belgium. Hidden beneath the ice are ancient valleys, mountain ranges, rolling hills, broad plateaus, and river systems that resemble the landscapes of northern Europe. Researchers believe these regions may once have supported plants and many different forms of life. Then the climate changed. The freezing of Antarctica was not an isolated event affecting only one continent. It was part of a much larger pattern of climate cycles that have shaped our planet for millions of years. Earth's climate has never remained completely unchanged. There have been warmer ages and colder ages, periods when glaciers expanded across continents, followed by times when they slowly retreated. The most recent ice age began around 2.6 million years ago. It reached its coldest stage roughly 20,000 years ago, before gradually ending about 12,000 years ago, leading into the warmer climate we live in today. During these immense cycles, the face of the planet can change completely. Green landscapes may disappear beneath ice. Sea levels may rise or fall. Entire species may adapt and survive, while others vanish forever. The transformation of Antarctica from a green continent into a frozen wilderness is one of the most remarkable examples of these natural changes. Yet some researchers have wondered whether another process may also have played a role. One controversial idea is known as true polar wander, sometimes described alongside theories of crustal displacement. According to this hypothesis, Earth's outer shell may slowly shift over the layers beneath it, moving entire continents into different climate zones over immense periods of time. This is different from the slow changes in Earth's axial tilt. If such a process occurred, Antarctica may once have occupied a much warmer position before gradually reaching its present location around the South Pole. The idea remains highly controversial. Even so, geological evidence does show that Earth's surface has changed dramatically over millions of years. Ancient coastlines, rock formations, and the movement of tectonic plates all remind us that our planet has never been completely still. One of the most unusual figures associated with these ideas is Edgar Cayce, often called the Sleeping Prophet. During trance sessions in the first half of the 20th century, Cayce claimed that Earth would experience enormous changes. He spoke of shifting climates, rising seas, and entire regions disappearing beneath the ocean. Among his most remarkable predictions was the belief that Antarctica would one day become green again and support human life. According to Cayce, changes to Earth's balance would trigger great floods, reveal the remains of ancient civilizations, and reshape much of the modern world. If those predictions were inspired by forgotten knowledge passed down from distant ages, one unsettling question naturally follows. Could Antarctica have been home to an advanced civilization before the climate changed forever? Perhaps the ice preserved more than ancient forests. Perhaps it also buried the final traces of a forgotten world. But Antarctica still has more secrets to reveal. One of its greatest mysteries lies deep beneath the ice itself. Hidden below nearly 4 kilometers of ice is Lake Vostok. This enormous freshwater lake has remained completely isolated from the outside world for somewhere between 15 and 25 million years. Wrapped in total darkness beneath crushing pressure, it is considered one of the most mysterious environments on Earth. Scientists have long wondered whether life could survive in such extraordinary conditions. After more than a decade of drilling, Russian researchers finally reached the surface of the lake in 2012. For the first time, humanity touched a world that had been sealed away from sunlight and fresh air for millions of years. Unfortunately, the tremendous pressure inside the lake forced water upward into the drilling hole, where it mixed with drilling fluids before uncontaminated samples could be collected. Today we know that Lake Vostok is not alone. Scientists have identified more than 400 subglacial lakes beneath Antarctica. Some cover areas as large as major cities. Others behave like hidden reservoirs that slowly fill and drain over time. These lakes remain liquid not because of sunlight, but because of geothermal heat rising from deep within Earth and the immense pressure created by the ice above them. Even more remarkable, many of these lakes are connected by rivers flowing beneath the ice, forming an enormous hidden network of water beneath the continent. One of the most surprising discoveries came from Lake Mercer. Despite existing in complete darkness, under immense pressure with no sunlight at all, researchers discovered thriving communities of microorganisms. Even with almost no oxygen and very little food reaching them from the surface, these tiny forms of life were not merely surviving. They were actively living and growing. Far beneath the Antarctic ice, scientists believe there may be far more than microscopic life. Some researchers suggest that tiny animals, similar to tardigrades or microscopic worms, could also survive in these isolated waters. Another remarkable discovery came from Lake Enigma. Hidden beneath thick layers of ice, researchers found unusual microbial mats covering the lake floor. Some of these formations even resembled miniature trees. Further studies revealed entirely new communities of bacteria, unlike anything previously known. Some species appeared to cooperate with one another, while others survived as parasites. The complexity of these biological relationships surprised even experienced scientists. As Antarctica's floating ice shelves slowly crack and break apart, they occasionally expose parts of the seafloor that have remained hidden for centuries. One such event revealed an extraordinary ecosystem beneath the George VI ice shelf. In a region that had likely been sealed beneath ice for hundreds of years, scientists discovered large corals, giant sea spiders, fish, octopuses, and many other forms of marine life. Living in complete darkness, these animals had survived for decades, perhaps even centuries, supported only by nutrients carried beneath the ice through slow-moving ocean currents. Another expedition made an equally surprising discovery beneath the Filtner Ron ice shelf. While drilling through the ice, researchers reached the seafloor and found a large boulder covered with sponges and several other stationary organisms that had never been identified before. These animals were living nearly 260 kilometers from the nearest place where sunlight could reach the ocean. In a place where scientists expected almost no life at all, these organisms were feeding, growing, and surviving. The little food they needed had traveled incredible distances through slow-moving ocean currents. Even that tiny supply was enough to support an entire hidden ecosystem. Despite discoveries like these, Antarctica remains one of the most difficult places on Earth to study. Extreme weather, international agreements, and strict environmental protections make large scientific expeditions both difficult and rare. Much of the continent has never been touched by humans, and enormous areas still remain unexplored. Yet even the small windows scientists have opened into this frozen world reveal one remarkable truth. Antarctica is far from lifeless. One of the last things anyone expects to find in a continent covered entirely by snow and ice is a bright red waterfall. Yet that is exactly what emerges from the front of Taylor Glacier in Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys. Known as Blood Falls, it is one of the strangest natural wonders on the continent. Its deep red color is so striking that for decades it has been considered one of Antarctica's most unsettling sights. At first glance, it almost appears as though the glacier itself is bleeding. Dark red water pours from the ice, staining the surrounding snow like blood flowing from an open wound. Set within one of the coldest and driest deserts on Earth, the waterfall is remarkable not only because of its appearance, but because of the extraordinary conditions that make it possible. The scientific explanation behind Blood Falls is just as fascinating as the site itself. More than 5 million years ago, before glaciers covered this valley, the area was beneath the sea. As the ocean retreated, pockets of salt water became trapped beneath the growing ice. Over time, these isolated pools remained sealed beneath hundreds of meters of ice, completely cut off from sunlight, fresh air, and the outside world. As millions of years passed, the water became even saltier and absorbed large amounts of iron and other minerals from the surrounding rocks. Today, pressure beneath the glacier slowly forces this iron-rich water upward through cracks in the ice. When the water reaches the surface and comes into contact with oxygen, the dissolved iron begins to oxidize, much like metal rusting in the air. This natural reaction turns the water a deep red color, creating the remarkable illusion that the glacier is bleeding. But the story of Blood Falls does not end with chemistry. Within these iron-rich waters, scientists discovered an isolated ecosystem of microscopic life. These extraordinary microorganisms survive without sunlight or oxygen. Instead of relying on photosynthesis, they obtain energy through chemical reactions involving iron and sulfur. Having evolved in complete isolation for millions of years, these tiny organisms help scientists understand how life can survive under some of the harshest conditions on Earth. They also provide valuable clues in the search for life on icy worlds beyond our planet, such as Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus. Even though Blood Falls has a well-understood scientific explanation, it continues to inspire many alternative theories. Some people believe the red water is connected to hidden structures buried beneath the ice. Others suggest it could somehow be linked to an underground base hidden deep below the glacier. According to these ideas, the red water is not simply the result of oxidized iron, but the byproduct of an unknown artificial system. More elaborate theories even claim that the water is leaking from a secret biological laboratory beneath the ice, where mysterious experiments involving microorganisms and minerals are taking place. There is no reliable scientific evidence supporting these claims. Even so, stories like these continue to fuel Antarctica's reputation as one of the most mysterious places on Earth. While scientists continue working to explain the continent's many secrets, stories that stretch beyond the limits of science are still told. Beyond the glaciers, the hidden lakes, the fossils, and the ancient landscapes, many people believe Antarctica may still hold mysteries that have yet to be fully understood. One of the most famous legends is the mysterious creature known as Ningen. According to the stories, Ningen is a gigantic pale white sea creature that lives in the icy waters surrounding Antarctica. Some witnesses claim it can reach lengths of nearly 30 meters. Several people working aboard Japanese research vessels have reported seeing an enormous white figure silently rise from the water before disappearing beneath the waves only moments later. Its face is often described as strangely human, with two small eyes and a wide, expressionless mouth. Some accounts describe arms and hands, while others portray it as a smooth-bodied marine animal with fins. Its pale color is said to make it almost impossible to distinguish from the drifting ice around it. The first modern stories about Ninjan appeared on Japanese internet forums during the early 2000s. Within a short time, the legend spread around the world. Some believe it could represent an unknown marine species. Others suggest it may be the last surviving member of an ancient lineage that has existed since Antarctica was warm and full of life. More extraordinary claims suggest that Ninjan may possess intelligence or even be capable of walking on land. According to some theories, governments know far more about the creature than they have publicly admitted and continue to keep any evidence secret because of its scientific or strategic importance. Another legendary creature, sometimes connected with Antarctica, is the kraken. Although the kraken is traditionally associated with Scandinavian legends from the North Atlantic, stories of enormous sea creatures also exist in the Southern Ocean. In 2016, satellite images taken near Deception Island appeared to show a massive shadow beneath the water. Some people immediately suggested that it resembled the legendary kraken. Scientists later explained that the image was most likely a natural rock formation rising from the seabed. Even so, the resemblance was enough to spark new speculation. Considering that colossal squid, the largest invertebrates on Earth, are known to inhabit these deep Antarctic waters, it is not difficult to understand why stories of giant sea monsters continue to survive. Not every Antarctic legend is about mysterious creatures. Some describe experiences that are even more difficult to explain. Throughout the 20th century, several explorers and researchers reported the unsettling feeling that they were being watched. Some believed that an unseen presence was walking beside them across the snow. Months of darkness, overwhelming silence, and extreme isolation can have profound effects on the human mind. Perhaps that is one reason Antarctica has become such fertile ground for stories of the unexplained. One of the most famous accounts came from Sir Ernest Shackleton. In 1916, during an exhausting journey across South Georgia Island, Shackleton later wrote that he felt a fourth person was traveling beside his small group. In reality, there were only 3 men. Years later, the other members of the expedition admitted that they had experienced exactly the same feeling. Today, this remarkable experience is often linked to a psychological phenomenon known as the third man factor. Some of Antarctica's oldest stories are even darker. One of the longest-lasting legends dates back to the 1840s. According to the story, the British whaling ship Hope spotted another vessel trapped in the sea ice near the South Shetland Islands. As they approached, they discovered that the ship was called Jenny. The sailing vessel stood completely frozen within the surrounding ice. What the crew reportedly found inside became one of the most chilling legends in polar history. According to the story, every member of the crew remained aboard. All of them had died. The intense cold had preserved their bodies exactly where they had been performing their final duties. It is said that the captain's final entry remained inside the ship's logbook. The date was May 4th, 1823. The final message claimed that there had been no food for 71 days and that the captain was the only person still alive. The crew of the Hope was said to have recorded what they had seen before leaving the Jenny untouched among the ice. According to the legend, the frozen ship was never seen again. Other frequently repeated stories come from the McMurdo Dry Valleys, one of the driest regions on Earth. Scattered across this cold desert are abandoned huts and small stations left behind by early exploration teams. Over the years, some researchers working nearby have reported hearing unexplained footsteps across the snow. Others claimed that doors slowly opened on their own, or that voices resembling whispers could be heard within the wind. Some accounts describe researchers entering one of the abandoned huts and immediately feeling that an unseen presence was watching them from somewhere inside. Others reported that tools disappeared without explanation, only to reappear later in the exact place where they had last been seen. Scientists usually connect these experiences with extreme isolation, difficult environmental conditions, and the psychological effects of working in one of the loneliest places on Earth. Long exposure to silence, severe cold, and months of uninterrupted daylight or darkness can alter human perception. These conditions may cause auditory illusions, a feeling of being watched, and a deep sense of unease that is difficult to explain. Even so, not everyone finds this explanation convincing. Some people point out that Blood Falls, with its disturbing red appearance, lies within the same wider region. To them, the connection feels too unusual to dismiss as simple coincidence. Interest in Antarctica and its secrets did not begin with modern satellites. Long before international treaties and permanent research stations, the frozen continent attracted explorers, scientists, and some of the most controversial governments of the 20th century. One of those governments was Nazi Germany. Just before the beginning of the Second World War, Antarctica became the destination of an ambitious German expedition. The journey was soon forgotten by much of the world. Years later, however, it would become the foundation for countless theories and rumors. In 1938, Adolf Hitler approved an expedition to Antarctica. The official purpose was economic. Germany was preparing for the possibility of war and wanted to reduce its dependence on foreign imports. Whale oil was extremely valuable at the time. It was used in the production of margarine, soap, and many other oil-based products. Germany obtained much of this resource from Norway. The government wanted greater economic independence and believed the whale populations of the Southern Ocean might offer an important opportunity. Preparations moved quickly. The ship MS Schwabenland left the port of Hamburg on December 17, 1938. On board were 82 people, including scientists, naval officers, technicians, and a representative of the Nazi Party. Their destination was a broad region of Queen Maud Land between areas claimed by Britain and Norway. Much of this territory had not yet been formally claimed. After several weeks, the ship reached the frozen coast of Antarctica. Two Dornier Wal seaplanes carried aboard the vessel, then began a series of reconnaissance flights. The aircraft flew across enormous areas. During these flights, they dropped aluminium markers bearing the swastika as symbols of a possible German territorial claim. The Germans named the region New Schwabenland, or New Swabia, after the expedition ship. During the expedition, more than 600,000 square kilometers of land were photographed from the air. These surveys greatly expanded geographical knowledge of that part of Antarctica. Some of the photographs were taken in color, which was unusual for the period. Several of these images are still considered valuable scientific records today. The expedition officially ended in February 1939, only a few months before the beginning of the war. The Schwabenland returned to Hamburg, carrying thousands of aerial photographs and geological observations. Much of the collected information was lost during the war or remained unpublished for many years. Some documents did not appear until the late 1950s. A number of researchers later suggested that other records may have been deliberately hidden. This is where the mystery begins. For many years, the expedition of 1938 and 1939 was seen as a brief scientific mission with limited political importance. After the war ended, however, rumors began to spread about what Nazi Germany may truly have been searching for in Antarctica. Some believed that the interest of the expedition went far beyond whale oil and mapmaking. According to later claims, the real purpose may have been to establish a permanent base on the continent. Hidden beneath the ice and far beyond the reach of enemy nations, such a base could have served as a protected refuge, a research center, or final escape route for senior Nazi officials if Germany lost the war. The idea of secret Nazi bases beneath Antarctica may seem highly unlikely. Yet several events that occurred soon after the war helped these rumors grow. In July 1945, 2 months after Germany surrendered, The German submarine U-530 unexpectedly arrived at the naval base of Mar del Plata in Argentina. 1 month later, another German submarine, U-977, appeared in the same region. Questions were raised about why the submarines had remained at sea for so long and what they had been doing in the South Atlantic. Some believed that they had transporting senior Nazi officials or valuable cargo to a hidden base in Antarctica before surrendering. No physical evidence of such a base has ever been found. No tunnels, abandoned buildings, or hidden chambers carved into the bedrock have been discovered beneath the ice. Even so, parts of New Swabia remain active areas of scientific research. This is especially true of the Skermark Oasis, a region first studied in detail by the German expedition. Today, research stations operated by several countries, including Russia and India, are located in the area. The event that gave these stories even greater power was Operation Highjump. Between 1946 and 1947, the United States organized the largest military expedition to Antarctica ever attempted. The operation involved more than 4,700 personnel, 13 ships, and many aircraft. It became closely associated with Admiral Richard E. Byrd, one of the most famous polar explorers of the period. According to the official explanation, the purpose was to conduct scientific research, map the continent, and test personnel and military equipment under polar conditions. The immense size of the operation and the speed with which it was organized after the war caused some people to believe that the United States Navy was interested in more than geography. According to one theory, the fleet had been sent to investigate or destroy a hidden Nazi presence that was still operating somewhere on the continent. From the beginning, Operation Highjump was unlike earlier Antarctic expeditions. It took place only months after the end of the Second World War, while the world was still entering a fragile period of peace. Its scale was without precedent. The task force was divided into Eastern, Western, and Central naval groups. Each group had its own aircraft and support from ice-breaking vessels. The official goal was to photograph and map as much of the continent as possible, while testing how military vehicles and equipment performed in extreme polar conditions. The formal commander of the task force was Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen. Richard Byrd, however, became the public face of the American presence. He was already widely respected for his earlier polar expeditions and his long career in the Navy. During the operation, a base known as Little America 4 was established. Extensive aerial surveys then began across large areas of the continent. By the end of the expedition, nearly 3,900,000 square kilometers of Antarctica had been photographed. Thousands of images had been collected. Yet the photographs were not the only reason the operation attracted worldwide attention. Many people became more interested in what may have happened behind the official story and in what Byrd may truly have encountered. According to official records, Operation Highjump lasted from December 1946 until March 1947. The mission ended several weeks earlier than originally planned. This sudden return created many questions. Rumors of damaged aircraft, unexplained losses, and unusual encounters strengthened the belief that something unexpected had happened. To some, it appeared that the expedition may have discovered something it had not expected to find. One of the most persistent theories claimed that the true goal of the operation was to locate an underground Nazi base near Queen Maud Land. This was the same region explored during the German New Swabia expedition. Supporters of the theory often point to the large number of military personnel and the use of advanced aircraft capable of long-range reconnaissance flights. Several accidents were also connected with these stories. One of them involved the Martin PBM-5 flying boat known as George 1. The aircraft crashed during the operation, and 3 members of the crew were killed. In the years after Operation Highjump, rumors began to spread that Bayard had experienced something extraordinary during one of his flights. According to some accounts, his aircraft entered a region that should not have existed within the Antarctic ice. The stories claimed that he encountered warm air, green valleys, and a mild landscape hidden within the frozen continent. More extreme versions suggested that Bayard had seen something beyond an unusual climate zone. They claimed that he entered a world outside known reality. According to these stories, he encountered unidentified flying objects in the sky and communicated with members of an advanced civilization living beneath the surface. None of these events appeared in the official reports. However, during the 1960s, a document began to circulate that was said to be a secret diary written by Bayard during the expedition. In this supposed diary, Bayard described an encounter with a vehicle unlike any aircraft he had ever seen. According to the story, the instruments inside his plane suddenly stopped working. His radio communications were taken over by an unknown force. He was then instructed to follow a course toward a hidden landing area inside a valley. There, he was supposedly met by tall beings with bright eyes. These beings were described as possessing knowledge and technology far beyond anything known on the surface. They were said to have guided Bayard into a vast city hidden beneath the earth. According to the account, this underground world was called Agartha. Agartha is a legendary kingdom believed to exist deep below the surface of the planet. The story is closely connected with the hollow Earth theory. According to this idea, Earth is not a completely solid sphere. Instead, it may contain enormous hollow regions, underground cities, and even hidden oceans. Within these stories, Agartha is described as one of the greatest civilizations beneath the surface. Its inhabitants, sometimes called the Ancient Ones, are said to possess knowledge and technology far more advanced than anything known to modern humanity. They are believed to have created vehicles that move without ordinary fuel. Some stories claim they can control natural forces and have built a civilization far more peaceful and advanced than the world above. The idea of an advanced civilization hidden beneath the ground is not unique to Agartha. Similar stories appear in many traditions. The Tibetan legend of Shambhala speaks of a hidden realm of wisdom and peace. Mayan and Celtic stories also describe underground cities and forgotten worlds beneath the land. Across many different cultures, the same idea appears again and again. Somewhere below the surface, ancient civilizations may still exist beyond the knowledge of ordinary people. The legend of Agartha became especially popular during the 19th century through the writings of European occult authors. Yet the claims connected with Admiral Richard Bayard brought the story to a much wider audience. According to the supposed secret diary, Bayard met the inhabitants of Agartha. They warned him that humanity had entered a dangerous age. They were said to be deeply concerned about the development of nuclear weapons. They claimed that they had watched the civilizations of the surface for centuries and believed humanity was moving toward its own destruction. The story says that Bayard was asked to carry a message of peace and balance to the leaders of the world. Afterward, he was supposedly returned to the surface and sent back through the Antarctic ice. There is no official proof that this diary is genuine. Many researchers believe it was created long after Bayard had died. His verified records contain no description of such an encounter. No reliable evidence supports the claims made in the document. Even so, the story continued to grow. The secrecy surrounding parts of Operation Highjump and several unusual statements made by Bayard helped keep the rumors alive. In March 1947, Bayard gave a rare interview in Chile. During the interview, he said that Antarctica would have great strategic importance in the future. He warned that the United States might one day face attacks traveling across the polar regions. Some believe these words were simply a military assessment during the early years of the Cold War. Others claim that Bayard was quietly referring to something unusual he had witnessed during the expedition. As the Cold War began, the United States organized further missions to Antarctica. Operation Windmill took place during 1947 and 1948. Later, Operation Deep Freeze began during the International Geophysical Year of 1957 and 1958. Byard remained connected with these Antarctic efforts. His health, however, was steadily becoming worse. He died in 1957, only a few months after his final journey to Antarctica. Even today, the debate surrounding Operation Highjump has not completely disappeared. The expedition produced important scientific results and made a major contribution to the mapping of Antarctica. Yet the enormous military presence and the early end of the mission continue to inspire questions. Was the operation truly organized only for scientific research and military training? Or did the United States Navy encounter something that it could not explain or did not wish to reveal? During the final years of the Second World War, stories began to spread about unusual aircraft. The reports became even more common after the war had ended. Witnesses described silent objects that moved at extraordinary speeds. Many were said to have the shape of a disc and seemed unlike any aircraft known at the time. At first, these accounts were dismissed as rumors. Soon afterward, reports of unidentified flying objects began to appear in many parts of the world. Some researchers started connecting two different mysteries. One involved the growing number of UFO sightings. The other involved the secret technology projects of Nazi Germany. During the war, German scientists developed jet aircraft, long-range rockets, and experimental propulsion systems. At the same time, several senior figures within the Nazi government were known to have an interest in occult beliefs, ancient civilizations, and mysterious sources of power. One organization often mentioned in these stories is the Thule Society. It is said that the group studied ancient mythology, ideas about the Aryan race, and legends of hidden worlds beneath the earth. Another group frequently mentioned is the Vril Society. According to the stories, its members believed in a mysterious force called Vril. This energy was described as a powerful source that could operate machines and strengthen the human mind. Legends claim that members of the Vril Society attempted to communicate with non-human beings through meditation and ritual. These beings were said to come either from other planets or from civilizations hidden deep within the Earth. Some theories claim that these beliefs were not only spiritual ideas. They suggest that German researchers attempted to turn them into real technologies. Three names appear repeatedly in these stories: Hornebu, Vril, Die Glock. These are described as experimental aircraft with circular shapes, silent engines, and unknown sources of energy. Some stories even claim that they could overcome gravity itself. The most famous of these alleged projects is Die Glock, meaning the bell. The device was said to have the shape of a large bell. It supposedly produced an unusual glow and strange sounds. Some accounts claim that it could rise into the air without wings. Other stories go even further. They suggest that Die Glock could affect time, space, or the force of gravity. Most of these claims come from books and unverified accounts published after the war. Physical evidence is extremely limited. Even so, Die Glock became one of the most famous parts of the Nazi UFO legend. After the war ended, these stories became even more widespread. In 1947, only 2 years after Germany surrendered, the United States experienced its first major wave of UFO reports. Some researchers suggested that the objects were not visitors from space. They believed they might have been advanced aircraft developed by German scientists during the war. During the same period, the United States began a secret program known as Operation Paperclip. Through this program, hundreds of German scientists were brought to America. Many of these experts had worked on Nazi weapons projects. They later played important roles in the development of American rockets, aviation technology, and the space program. Some theories suggest that these scientists brought more than knowledge of rockets. They may also have carried secret information about experimental disc-shaped aircraft. According to this idea, some of the UFOs seen in later years may have been classified military vehicles developed from German designs. The Soviet Union also gained control of German scientists, technical documents, and military equipment after the war. Throughout the Cold War, both superpowers competed to obtain any technology that might give them an advantage. If functional disc-shaped aircraft had truly existed, some believe they could have become part of the most secret projects of either the United States or the Soviet Union. The most controversial version of the theory goes even further. Some believe that Nazi scientists did not develop these technologies alone. According to these claims, senior Nazi figures communicated with non-human beings. These beings were said to come from distant planets, other dimensions, or hidden civilizations beneath the Earth. They supposedly shared advanced knowledge in secret. The communication was said to occur through meetings, dreams, or mental contact. Some theories claim that after the war, high-ranking Nazi officials and scientists escaped to hidden bases in Antarctica. There, they supposedly continued their research far beyond the reach of the outside world. Books, magazines, and television programs later brought these stories to much larger audiences. The connections between Nazi technology, UFOs, Antarctica, and non-human intelligence became increasingly detailed. Some accounts claimed that German scientists worked directly with extraterrestrial beings. Others suggested that they had discovered lost technology created by a much older civilization. Historians point to a more cautious explanation. Nazi Germany did develop several military technologies that were far ahead of their time. Jet fighters, advanced rockets, and unusual experimental aircraft were real and well documented. However, there is no reliable evidence that Germany created flying discs, machines that removed gravity, or technology received from beings beyond the Earth. Most of the documents connected with these claims have never been verified. In many cases, there is no clear evidence that the projects or events described in them ever existed. Even so, the stories never disappeared completely. As high-resolution satellite images became more widely available, public interest in the unexplored regions of Antarctica grew even stronger. Today, platforms such as Google Earth allow people across the world to examine distant parts of the continent without ever leaving home. One satellite image taken in the Antarctic region facing the South Atlantic attracted international attention. The image appeared to show a long, straight trail across the ice. At the end of the trail was a large, dark object resting at an angle. The photograph spread quickly across the internet. Many people claimed that it showed the crash site of an enormous unidentified flying object. The long mark across the ice seemed to suggest that the object had moved or slid across the surface before coming to a stop. The dark shape, partly buried beneath the ice, was enough to inspire countless theories. Some believed it was a secret military aircraft. Others suggested that it might represent technology that did not originate on Earth. Another satellite image appeared to show a strange oval structure partly buried beneath the snow. Its smooth, curved shape stood out clearly against the white surface. Because of its symmetry, many viewers believed it looked more like an artificial object than a natural formation. Some people studying the image online suggested that it might be a large disc-shaped vehicle. They believed that melting snow and shifting ice may have slowly exposed something that had remained buried for many years. Others focused on the smooth edges and rounded form. They suggested that the visible object might not be a vehicle at all, but only one exposed section of a much larger structure hidden beneath the ice. Before long, new theories appeared. Some claimed that the oval formation could be an entrance leading to an underground facility. Not every strange satellite image resembled a machine. One of the most widely discussed images from Antarctica appeared to show an enormous face looking upward through the snow. In a remote part of the southeastern continent, shadows and ridges formed what seemed to be a giant head. Viewers believed they could see eyes, a nose, and a mouth across the white surface. The image quickly became known as the alien face. Some compared it with mythological beings. Others believed it resembled a giant statue left behind by an ancient civilization. The idea that something had deliberately marked the surface of the ice spread rapidly. Some people saw it as evidence that traces of a forgotten past still remained in Antarctica. Others believed it might represent an unknown presence beneath the ice, watching the surface from below. In another part of the continent, a solitary iceberg attracted attention because it appeared to resemble a large ship. From a particular angle, the formation looked like an enormous passenger vessel leaning into the sea ice. Shapes resembling windows, decks, and even funnels seemed to appear along its surface. No one presented serious evidence that it was truly a ship. However, the sharp and geometric lines of the iceberg encouraged claims that it could not have formed naturally. Some suggested that it might be the result of a secret engineering project. Others believed it was an ancient object preserved within the ice and slowly revealed as the surrounding surface melted. Other photographs and field reports described the bodies of seals found in high mountainous regions far from the ocean. The cold and dry conditions preserved many of these animals through natural mummification. Some are believed to be hundreds or even thousands of years old. Scientists have not fully explained why the animals traveled so far from their normal coastal habitats. One idea is that seals became confused by light reflecting from distant glaciers. They may have mistaken the shining ice for water and continued moving farther inland. Other researchers suggest that the remains could reflect ancient changes in climate or geography. The animals may have followed routes that were possible when the Antarctic landscape looked very different from the way it does today. For some people, these discoveries are simply unusual puzzles created by nature. For others, they are silent clues left behind by the past. Scientists around the world continue to offer logical explanations for most of the unusual images and stories connected with Antarctica. They point to weather, moving ice, shadows, changing light, and geological processes. These natural forces can create forms that appear remarkably artificial when seen from a satellite. Some people remain unconvinced. They believe that the strict control of travel and research in Antarctica suggests that important information is being deliberately hidden. Much of this suspicion is connected with one major historical event, the signing of the Antarctic Treaty. On December 1st, 1959, representatives from 12 countries gathered in Washington to decide the future of Antarctica. The meeting took place during one of the most tense periods of the Cold War. The nations included the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom. All had taken part in Antarctic research during the International Geophysical Year of 1957 and 1958. The agreement they signed was surprisingly brief. It contained only 14 articles. Over time, however, it became one of the most unusual and successful international agreements in modern history. The Antarctic Treaty officially entered into force on June 23, 1961. Under the agreement, the entire region south of the 60th parallel was to be used only for peaceful purposes. Military activity was prohibited. Nuclear testing was banned. Radioactive waste could not be disposed of on the continent. Scientific research was to remain open among the participating countries. Research findings and observations were expected to be shared. The treaty also prevented nations from making new territorial claims or expanding earlier ones. At first, these principles appeared to be a remarkable achievement. The goal was to protect a unique environment and preserve it for science, peace, and international cooperation. Over the years, more countries joined the treaty system. The agreement grew into a wider network of environmental and scientific rules. The cooperation itself, however, caused some people to question whether the treaty had another purpose. It had been signed only 14 years after the end of the Second World War. The Cold War was becoming increasingly intense. The United States and the Soviet Union were competing in weapons, space exploration, and global influence. Yet these rival powers agreed to keep one of the largest and least explored regions on Earth free from military conflict. To some observers, the timing seemed remarkable. Supporters of conspiracy theories began asking what could have been discovered in Antarctica that was important enough to unite nations that agreed on almost nothing else. Antarctica is not completely forbidden today. However, access to the continent and activity there remains strictly controlled. Only a limited number of scientists can live and work there for extended periods. They require special permission, training, equipment, and logistical support. Tourists are also allowed to visit Antarctica. Most journeys remain limited to selected coastal regions. Visitors must follow strict environmental rules and usually travel with organized expeditions. The vast interior of the continent remains inaccessible to ordinary travelers. Some regions have restrictions on flights or entry because of safety concerns, environmental protection, or active scientific research. Research stations cannot be entered without permission. These rules can make Antarctica feel like a forbidden world. Some believe that technology from beyond Earth is hidden beneath the ice. Others suggest that the continent once held a lost civilization connected with Atlantis or other ancient legends. Some people also claim that governments are conducting secret experiments in Antarctica, far from public oversight. According to this view, the secrecy, surveillance, and restrictions surrounding the continent suggest that important information is being kept from the public. Over time, the Antarctic Treaty developed into a much larger framework known as the Antarctic Treaty System. This system includes environmental protections, rules for scientific cooperation, and additional agreements governing activity across the continent. It also has a permanent secretariat based in Buenos Aires. Representatives of the participating nations meet each year to discuss scientific research, environmental protection, safety, and administration. Not every part of these meetings is open to the public. Most observers believe the system exists to protect Antarctica. Others believe it may be protecting something within Antarctica. To most people, the continent may appear distant, restricted, and surrounded by rules. To scientists, however, Antarctica means something far greater. It is an enormous natural laboratory. It is a place where the past of Earth remains preserved within the ice, and where signs of the future can already be seen. Despite the legends, mysteries, and conspiracy theories surrounding the continent, the true importance of Antarctica may not come from what it hides. It may come from what it reveals. For decades, scientific research conducted here has helped humanity understand the planet more clearly. Deep within the Antarctic ice, in some places more than 4 kilometers beneath the surface, ancient bubbles of air remain trapped. Each layer of ice is like a small time capsule from the past. These layers preserve information about temperature, atmospheric gases, and environmental changes stretching back more than 1 million years. Scientists remove long cylinders of ice from deep within the frozen sheet. By examining these ice cores, they can reconstruct the climate history of the planet. They can then compare that record with the rapidly warming conditions of the present day. This helps them understand how unusual modern climate change may be. One of the clearest examples of the value of Antarctic science came in 1985. Researchers discovered severe thinning in the ozone layer above the continent. The discovery revealed a threat that could not be seen with ordinary eyes, yet had consequences for the entire world. While the ice preserves the past, the future of Antarctica may be shaped by a very different danger. Invasive species. These organisms are real, and they have already begun reaching the continent. Scientists warn that foreign species are arriving aboard ships, aircraft, food supplies, clothing, and even the soles of shoes. A single fly hidden on a research vessel or a tiny seed attached to a jacket can become a serious biological threat. In 2014, a hydroponic growing facility at the Australian Davis Station was invaded by tiny creatures known as springtails. These animals had never before been recorded in that part of Antarctica. Inside the warm and humid environment, they multiplied quickly. Before long, large numbers of them were seen moving across the surface of the water. Scientists responded immediately. The facility was closed. It was disinfected. Eventually, the entire structure was removed from the site. The event was treated almost like an outbreak. In the fragile ecosystem of Antarctica, even a very small foreign organism can create unpredictable consequences. Other invasions have been much harder to eliminate. A tiny species of fungus gnat found inside the sewage system of one research station remained present for more than 20 years. Marine animals from distant parts of the world have also reached Antarctic waters. Species of mussels have been discovered near the Antarctic Peninsula. Researchers believe they may have traveled attached to the hulls of tourist ships or research vessels. These creatures may seem harmless. Yet if they spread, they could change the balance of an entire ecosystem. As the outer regions of Antarctica become warmer, and as the ice continues to retreat, areas once protected by extreme conditions may become accessible to both humans and invasive species. For scientists, these biological invasions are more than a practical problem. They are a warning. Life in Antarctica developed in isolation for millions of years. The delicate balance of the continent was shaped by that long separation from the rest of the world. Now that isolation is slowly coming to an end. Researchers are racing to record and protect native species before they are displaced by new arrivals. Antarctica may be one of the last large regions on Earth that has remained mostly untouched by industry. That protection can no longer be taken for granted. Some researchers believe the arrival of foreign organisms raises a much larger question. What happens when two separate ecosystems or two different worlds meet? In this sense, the arrival of invasive species carries an echo of the questions often asked about life beyond Earth. Scientists are not speaking about beings from other planets. The basic idea, however, is similar. These organisms come from somewhere else. They do not belong to the environment they enter. Once they arrive, they may change that environment in ways that no one can fully predict. As Antarctica becomes warmer and easier to reach, the continent is entering a new age. Tourism is growing. Supply routes are expanding. The natural barriers that protected the continent for centuries are beginning to weaken. The freezing cold, violent seas, and extreme distance are no longer as powerful as they once were. For science, this brings both opportunity and danger. Another question being studied in Antarctica may be the most important question of all. Over the past century, the average temperature of Earth has risen at an alarming rate. Few places have felt this change as strongly as Antarctica. The Antarctic Peninsula, in particular, is one of the fastest warming regions on the planet. In some areas, temperatures have risen by around 3 degrees Celsius in only 50 years. As a result, glaciers are retreating. Sea ice is melting earlier each year. Enormous ice shelves are cracking and collapsing into the ocean. These changes do not affect Antarctica alone. Their consequences extend across the entire world. Around 90% of the fresh water on Earth is frozen within the Antarctic ice sheets. As that ice melts, global sea levels rise. If the West Antarctic ice sheet were to melt completely, sea level around the world could rise by more than 3 meters. Such a collapse would take centuries to unfold. Even so, some scientists believe the process may already have begun. As the ice retreats, another question is becoming possible to ask. Could Antarctica one day become green again? At first, the idea seems impossible. Yet Antarctica was not always covered in ice. Around 100 million years ago, during the age of dinosaurs, the continent was much warmer. Large forests covered parts of the land. Fossils show that trees, ferns, and many forms of life once flourished here. Scientists have even found evidence of ancient forest fires in Antarctica. Beneath the modern ice sheets lie the remains of old rivers, valleys, and broad landscapes that were frozen and preserved over immense periods of time. If the planet continues warming at its current rate, some coastal regions of Antarctica may slowly begin to resemble the milder environments of the distant past. Researchers believe that by the end of this century, rising temperatures and greater rainfall may allow grasses and other hardy plants to spread along parts of the coast. Several grass species that are not native to Antarctica have already begun appearing on the peninsula. Gentoo penguins, which prefer milder conditions, are already expanding their range farther south. Some experts believe that within the next 2 centuries, certain coastal regions could become mild enough to support limited agriculture. In carefully selected areas, crops such as barley and potatoes, along with grazing animals adapted to short growing seasons, might survive. Some researchers have even suggested that small human settlements could one day exist without relying entirely on food shipped from elsewhere. But a greener Antarctica would come at an enormous cost. The melting of the ice sheets could fundamentally reshape Earth's climate. Rising sea levels would threaten coastal cities across the globe. Ecosystems that have evolved in isolation for millions of years could be overwhelmed by newly arriving species. The untouched landscapes, frozen silence, and extraordinary wilderness that draw scientists to Antarctica today could disappear forever. Even under much warmer conditions, the continent's long months of darkness and the low angle of the sun would continue to place natural limits on life. The vast interior would almost certainly remain too cold, too dry, and too dark for traditional farming or permanent large-scale settlements. Along parts of the coastline, however, where temperatures are higher and daylight lasts longer during the summer, life could slowly begin to return. The future of Antarctica remains uncertain. Some scientists believe that as regions closer to the equator continue to warm, Antarctica may become one of the last great cool refuges on Earth. Others warn that once the loss of ice reaches certain tipping points, the consequences could extend far beyond anything we can confidently predict. One thing is certain. The entire world is watching Antarctica. For generations, this continent was seen as a frozen relic of the distant past. Today, it has become a vast mirror reflecting humanity's influence on the planet, and perhaps a glimpse of the future that awaits us. From remote research stations and satellites orbiting high above the Earth, scientists will continue watching every change. Within the ice, they search not only for clues about our past, but also for warnings about our future. The forbidden continent is no longer as silent as it once seemed. Its glaciers are cracking, its climate is changing, and little by little, the secrets hidden beneath the ice are beginning to emerge. Yet until everything buried beneath that frozen world has finally been revealed, Antarctica will remain Earth's last great unknown, a place where silence, science, and mystery exist side by side. Thank you for joining me on tonight's journey through one of the most mysterious places on Earth. As the icy winds fade into silence and Antarctica slowly disappears into the darkness once more, let your own thoughts drift peacefully away. Perhaps the greatest mysteries are not the ones we have already solved, but the ones that continue waiting beneath the ice, patient and undisturbed, for someone to discover them. For now, there is nothing more to do. Simply rest, sleep well, and I'll see you in the next journey through history. Good night.